One wrong turn, one nervous hand, one bullet, and 10 million people never came home. He said, "I will be back by Christmas." Christmas came and went, and he never came back. For 4 years, the guns never stopped. Then November 11th, everything went silent, and soldiers wept. 10 million men, all alive in 1914, all gone by 1918. Every single one had a name. They called it the war to end all wars. 20 years later, Hitler invaded Poland. We never learn. Gavrilo Princip. That name will always live in the history books, remembered for a bullet that changed everything. He was a young man, 19 years old, a Bosnian Serb. He was consumed by the idea of pan-Slavism, the belief that all Slavics peoples should unite, free themselves from the grip of Austria-Hungary, and live on their own terms. He was a member of Mlada Bosna, Young Bosnia, a revolutionary group opposed to Austrian rule. He wanted Bosnia to be united with Serbia. He wanted freedom. He lived for a cause, and he was ready to die for it. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, the empire's future emperor, came to Sarajevo. He was there with his wife Sophie. It was an official visit. He had come to observe military maneuvers in Bosnia, to do an official tour of the city. He rode through the streets in an open car, waving at people, smiling. A royal visit. Nobody knew that death had also arrived in the city that day. Gavrilo and his associates had planned it in advance. They wanted to kill the Archduke. Some of them had already tried and failed. One threw a grenade that bounced off Franz Ferdinand's car and exploded under a different vehicle, injuring several people. Gavrilo believed the plan had fallen apart. He stood outside a delicatessen, defeated, deflated. And then fate took a strange and terrible turn. Franz Ferdinand's car made a wrong turn. The driver did not know the correct route. The car slowed, right in front of where Gavrilo was standing, just a few feet away. Gavrilo raised his pistol. 2 shots were fired. One struck Franz Ferdinand in the neck. One struck Sophie in the abdomen. Both died that same day. Nobody knew that those 2 shots were about to ignite the largest fire the world had ever seen. Nobody understood that this was not a localized crime. This was a trigger with its hand. On the dynamite that had been buried under all of Europe, Austria-Hungary exploded with rage. They blamed Serbia, and they were not entirely wrong since the weapons and the network behind the assassination had connections to Belgrade. Austria-Hungary issued Serbia an ultimatum, 10 humiliating demands. Serbia accepted most of them, but they refused one, to allow Austrian officers inside Serbia to conduct their own independent investigation. Austria-Hungary said that was not enough. And on July 28, 1914, exactly 1 month after that bullet, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and then the dominoes fell. Russia said, "Serbia are our Slavic brothers. We will not abandon them." Russia began mobilizing its army. Germany told Russia, stop mobilizing. Russia did not stop. Germany declared war on Russia. France was Russia's ally. Germany declared war on France too. And then Germany did the thing that pulled Britain into the war. Germany invaded Belgium. The Schlieffen Plan, Germany's strategic master plan, required attacking France through Belgium because it was the fastest route. Belgium was a neutral country. It had no quarrel with anyone. It was part of no alliance. But in Germany's plan, it was simply a road, a shortcut. And in 1839, Britain had given a formal guarantee of Belgian neutrality. A treaty. A commitment. When Germany crossed into Belgium, Britain had no choice. It declared war on Germany. In the first week of August 1914, barely 1 month after that single bullet, all of Europe was at war, and the reaction of the people? The people were excited. Crowds gathered in the cities. Flags were waved. Young men signed up for the army with enthusiasm and energy. Mothers said goodbye to their sons, believing they would return soon, safe and victorious. Fathers sent their boys off on trains saying this was an adventure, a small war, over quickly, over by Christmas. That phrase was on everyone's lips. A short battle, one side wins, the other loses, game over. But this was not a game, this was hell. What happened on the Western Front is a chapter in human history that makes the soul shudder. Germany's plan was to move fast through Belgium into France and take Paris. Paris falls, France is finished. But at the Battle of the Marne in 1914, French and British forces stopped Germany's advance. And then both sides did something that changed the entire face of this war. They began digging into the ground. Trenches. Those ditches carved into the earth. They became the symbol of this war, its defining image, its face. Soldiers buried themselves in the ground to escape artillery, machine gun fire, enemy attacks. Germans in their trenches on one side, British and French in their trenches on the other. Between them, a stretch of open ground, sometimes just a few hundred meters wide, called no man's land, where nobody could go, where those who went did not come back. From the Swiss border to the English Channel, thousands of miles of trench systems. A continuous line, on both sides, just a few hundred meters apart. And what was it like in there? Think about it for a moment. You are sitting in a ditch carved into the earth. Step outside and bullets find you. Stay inside and life is its own kind of suffering. In summer, the heat bakes you from above while you sit in damp darkness below. In winter, the cold freezes you to the bone. Your clothes are wet, your boots are wet, the mud and water never dry. There was a condition called trench foot, when feet rotted from constant exposure to water. Some men lost their feet entirely. There were rats, enormous rats that fed on corpses, that made noise through the night, that stole whatever sleep was possible. There were lice, living in the clothes, drinking blood. There was mud so deep that at Passchendaele men drowned in it. There was a smell of bodies, of standing water, of gunpowder, of disease that never left. A smell that soldiers said came home with them. A smell that never truly went away. Food was never enough. Corned beef, hard biscuits, a cup of tea. That was the daily reality for most British soldiers. Sleep was never complete. Sentry duty meant standing awake for hours through the night, watching the dark. Because if sleep came and the enemy attacked, everything was over. The sound of artillery never stopped during the day, and then the gas came, poison gas. This was the thing that made this war the most horrific in human history. April 22, 1915, at the Second Battle of Ypres, Germany used chlorine gas on a large scale for the first time. In the early evening, Allied troops saw a yellowish-green cloud drifting toward them from the German trenches. Some thought it was a smoke screen. Then the cloud reached them and went inside them. Eyes burned. Noses felt like they were on fire. Breathing became difficult, then impossible. Men fell to the ground, writhing, clutching at their throats. Those who ran survived. Those who stayed were killed or permanently damaged. Worse gases came later. Phosgene, more lethal than chlorine. And then mustard gas, the most devastating of all. Mustard gas did not kill quickly. It tortured. It blinded the eyes. It raised enormous blisters on the skin. It destroyed the lungs. It seeped into the ground and clothing and stayed for days. Soldiers who seemed safe would be in hospital beds hours later. The use of poison gas in warfare was a moment after which humanity had to ask itself, what have we become? Both sides used it. Germany started it. The Allies replied with it. Gas masks were developed, but masks were never perfect. Sometimes they came too late. Sometimes the gas was so concentrated the mask was not enough. Beyond gas, what consumed soldiers most was the machine gun and artillery. The machine gun, a device that could fire hundreds of rounds per minute. Anyone who stepped out of the trenches became an immediate target. Commanders would give the order, over the top, and soldiers would climb out of their ditches, fix their bayonets, step into no man's land, and advance toward the enemy. The machine guns would cut them down. 3 seconds. 5 seconds, and they would fall. Thousands. Every day. Artillery. Massive shells fired from great distances. A heavy shell landing nearby could vaporize a man completely. Some soldiers were listed as missing in action. The truth was that nothing of them remained. Men watched their comrades disappear into the air right in front of them, then stood up and kept moving. Shell shock. That is what this war gave the world. Today we call it PTSD. Hands that would not stop shaking. Nightmares that did not stop. Men who forgot their own names. Men who lost the ability to speak. Men who simply lost their minds. And what did the military do with these men? Some were accused of cowardice. Some were shot by their own armies. They were broken, shattered human beings. And they were executed. The Battle of the Somme. July 1st, 1916. A date history will never forget. British and French forces planned a massive offensive against Germany near the Somme River. For 7 days, beforehand, artillery fired continuously. Thousands upon thousands of shells rained down on German positions. Non-stop. So much that people in London, 160 miles away,